There is a bird in the rainforests of northern Australia and New Guinea that has been on this planet since before most of the ecosystems it currently inhabits had taken their present form. It stands nearly 2 meters tall. It weighs up to 85 kilograms. It cannot fly. It runs at 50 kilometers per hour and can jump nearly 2 meters off the ground. It has a hollow keratin crest rising from the top of its skull. Skin colored in blues and reds, so saturated they appear artificial, and a claw on its inner toe that measures up to 12 centimeters in length, straight, rigid, tapered to a point, and designed for a single purpose that has nothing to do with foraging or climbing. In 2026, scientists discovered that the cassowary's casque, that distinctive helmet, glows under ultraviolet light in patterns that differ between species and between individual birds. It is a communication channel we did not know existed until last year. We have been observing this animal for over a century, and we are still discovering the layers of its biology. That should tell you something about what we are dealing with. The cassowary holds the Guinness World Record as the world's most dangerous bird. That designation is based on 2 recorded human fatalities. The actual danger is not captured in that number, because the danger is not primarily about how often it kills, it is about what it is built to do and what happens when it decides to do it. The claw on the cassowary's second toe does not scratch, it does not dig. It delivers a forward kick powered by leg muscles whose structure is closer to a kangaroo's than any typical bird, generating force sufficient to break human ribs, fracture femurs, and penetrate the abdominal cavity. A study of 150 recorded cassowary attacks on humans in Queensland found that, in 75% of cases, the person had previously fed the bird, conditioning it to associate humans with food and removing the natural wariness that normally keeps these animals at a distance. Once that wariness is gone, the territorial instinct operates without the buffer that might otherwise produce a warning. This is the detail that wildlife managers in cassowary country return to repeatedly. The cassowary that has learned you are not a threat does not become less dangerous. It becomes more dangerous because it has removed the one hesitation that might have given you a second to respond. The most documented early fatality on record occurred in Queensland in April 1926. 2 brothers, Philip and Vic McLeod, encountered a cassowary on their family property. Philip, 16 years old, attempted to drive the bird off with a club. The bird went down briefly, recovered, and as Philip attempted to flee and fell, it delivered a single kick to his neck that severed his jugular vein. He died within minutes. His younger brother, 13, watched it happen. This case is cited repeatedly in ornithological literature, not because it is the most dramatic cassowary attack on record, but because it is the most instructive. Every element of cassowary lethality is present in one incident: the speed of recovery, the targeting of a downed victim, the single strike, the lethal precision, the complete absence of extended combat. The second confirmed human fatality came on April 12, 2019, in Gainesville, Florida. Marlon Oden was 75 years old. He had kept cassowaries on his private property in Alachua County for years. He was experienced. He fell near one of the birds. The cassowary attacked almost immediately. He died from his injuries. It was the first confirmed cassowary fatality in the United States in modern times, and it reinforced something the 1926 case had already established. Familiarity with these animals does not reduce the risk. In documented cases, it increases it, because birds raised in proximity to humans lose their instinctive caution while retaining their full territorial and defensive behavior. The result is an animal that approaches without hesitation and acts without warning. Understanding why requires understanding what the cassowary actually is beneath the surface biology. The cassowary belongs to the ratites, the group of flightless birds that includes ostriches, emus, rheas, and kiwis. All of them are ancient. The cassowary's lineage in its current rainforest form stretches back tens of millions of years, predating most of the ecosystems it now inhabits. It evolved not in response to the rainforest, but alongside it, across time spans long enough that the relationship between the bird and its habitat is structural rather than incidental. The cassowary is a keystone species, an animal whose removal from the ecosystem triggers consequences that extend far beyond its own population. It is one of the only animals physically large enough to swallow certain rainforest fruits whole and disperse their seeds intact across distances wide enough to sustain those plant species. It disperses the seeds of more than 200 plant species. Some of those plants, including the cassowary plum, whose fruit is too large for any other animal to consume, depend almost entirely on the cassowary for their reproduction and range. Remove the cassowary and specific trees begin to disappear. Remove those trees and the cascade continues outward through the food web, in ways researchers are still mapping. Queensland's rainforests exist in their current form, partly because this bird has been moving through them for millions of years. The casque on top of the skull remains, even after a century of study, only partially understood. Leading theories suggest it may amplify the low-frequency vocalizations the bird produces, sounds that fall below the threshold of human hearing, in the infrasound range used by elephants and whales to communicate across vast distances. A cassowary can be standing within a few meters of a person and simultaneously be communicating with another cassowary a kilometer away through frequencies the human auditory system cannot detect. The 2026 discovery that the casque also fluoresces under ultraviolet light, in patterns unique to each species and potentially to individual birds, suggests it serves a visual signaling function in wavelengths outside human perception. The animal has been operating on sensory and communicative channels we were not aware of until recently. The mechanics of the attack itself are worth understanding precisely, because the descriptions in most popular accounts soften something that deserves to be stated directly. The inner claw does not rake, it drives forward like a thrust, directly into whatever is positioned in front of the bird at the moment of the kick. If that target is a standing human, the impact is typically to the lower body. If the person has fallen, the mechanics change significantly. The bird can direct the kick toward the torso or neck. The Australian government's pest risk assessment recorded that of 150 documented attacks, 8 resulted in serious injury. Injuries documented in those cases included deep puncture wounds, lacerations, and broken bones. One of those 8 victims subsequently died. Cassowaries do not hunt. They do not pursue prey. What triggers an attack is consistently territorial, defending food, protecting chicks, responding to an approach that the bird reads as a challenge or a cornering. The warning phase, when it exists at all, is brief. A cassowary preparing to engage does not vocalize in a way humans easily recognize as a warning. It lowers its head, raises its feathers, and may make a short booming sound. The window between that signal and physical contact can be less than a second. Many attacks documented in Queensland happened without any warning the victim recognized at all. In Mission Beach, a small coastal community in the heart of cassowary habitat in the wet tropics of Queensland, this reality is built into daily life. Wildlife corridors are mapped. Road signs warning of cassowaries are genuine safety warnings, not decorative tourism branding. Residents track which individual birds hold territories that overlap with which streets, backyards, and walking paths. The Queensland Department of Environment and Science maintains rapid response protocols for cassowary incidents reported through its Q Wildlife app. Over the past 12 months, 21 cassowaries were killed in road strikes in the region, making vehicle collisions the leading cause of cassowary death reported to authorities. Fines of up to $6,452 apply to anyone caught feeding a cassowary, because feeding has been directly linked to changes in behavior that increase both the risk to humans and the risk of the bird being relocated or euthanized. The intelligence operating beneath this animal's territorial behavior is more substantial than its reputation suggests. Individual cassowaries have been documented returning to specific locations where food was previously available, sometimes years after the last feeding event. Wildlife managers in Queensland report birds that respond differently to familiar versus unfamiliar people, not with reduced aggression toward those they know, but with less hesitation. The caution that an unfamiliar entity might trigger is absent. The bird that knows you are not a threat has removed its own restraint. Its spatial memory covers several square kilometers of dense rainforest, tracking fruiting cycles, water sources, and competitor movements with the kind of ongoing environmental mapping that requires learned, updated individual knowledge rather than simple instinct. The population of southern cassowaries in Australia currently stands at approximately 4,400 to 5,000 individuals, a figure that took decades to stabilize after decades of decline driven by rainforest clearing, road fragmentation, dog attacks, and cyclone damage. The wet tropics of Queensland, where roughly 89% of remaining cassowary habitat in Australia falls within protected areas, was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1988. A decision that research now credits with halting what had been a rapid trajectory toward local extinction. The Australian population remains listed as endangered under federal and Queensland state legislation. The global population, including New Guinea, is listed as least concern, but that assessment is based on data from 2002, and conservation researchers have repeatedly noted that current population dynamics across the species range are inadequately monitored. The southern cassowary disperses seeds from plants that cannot reproduce without it. It maintains the structure of one of the oldest tropical rainforests on Earth. It communicates through frequencies below human hearing and, as of 2026, through light patterns outside human visual range. It has been on this planet in its current form long enough to have watched entire ecosystems rise and collapse around it, and it is now navigating a landscape that has been fragmented by roads, subdivided for residential development, and shared with domestic dogs, three threats that its biology developed across 50 million years of rainforest evolution has no preparation for. The animal most people see in a photograph and find interesting, unusual, vaguely prehistoric, is the same animal that killed a 16-year-old boy with a single kick in 1926 and a 75-year-old experienced keeper with a single attack in 2019. It does not pursue, it does not hunt, but when it decides that what is in front of it represents a challenge to its territory, its food, or its young, the response is immediate, precise, and requires no second attempt. The rainforest it lives in still exists. The bird still exists inside it. It was there long before the roads were built through its territory, and long before the houses appeared at the edge of its range. It does not recognize those boundaries as meaningful. Its territory is defined by its own movement, its own memory, and its own history in that landscape, a history that predates every structure humans have built within it. You are not visiting cassowary country. You are passing through it.